What's up everybody, I'm Kenjack and today I'm going to talk to you about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 2. Before going into a spoiler breakdown, I'll just give you a quick no spoiler reaction. I like this episode a lot and I think that it improved on the first episode in basically every facet I could possibly grade it on. There's better dialogue, better action, and I think that there's just more cohesion that made me more interested in everything that was going on. And it feels like the gears are finally rolling now into what we're going to get in the final 4 episodes, which I think is something that people forget. This isn't only a 6-episode series. Anyway, let's get into the breakdown. And warning, spoilers. If you haven't watched yet, you probably shouldn't watch this. We start off by getting to know who Fraud Captain America, aka John Walker, is as a person. He's a former football star turned West Point grad turned highly decorated counterterrorism soldier. And kind of like Steve Rogers was in Captain America: The First Avenger, he's not really about the whole propaganda part of the job. And his teammate Lamar Hoskins, who we'll talk more about later, he even references, the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan.
Trying to win the war. We can't do that without bullets and bandages, tanks and tents. Now that's where you come in. Every bond you buy will help protect someone you love. Keep our boys armed and ready, and the Germans will think twice about trying to get the drop on us.
Meanwhile, Sam and Bucky are both watching on TV, I think both very disappointed in different ways. And from everything we see from Walker, not just in this scene but in the rest of the episode, he seems like a good guy, but I can't shake the feeling of him being the Gilbert to Steve Rogers' Goldberg. Sam and Bucky team up to take down some of the Flag Smashers, which leads to a very funny back and forth about what is considered a wizard and what's considered a sorcerer. This leads to Bucky having his, I understood that reference, but that's what Steve had with the Flying Monkeys. But with Bucky, it's he understands who Gandalf is because he had already read The Hobbit in 1937. Very funny reference, I like that one, guys. While deploying into the field, they also have a very cool moment which reminds me of another Marvel scene.
So what's our plan? Great.
He's Loki or kills him, the Tesseract's lost.
Stark, we need a plan of attack.
I have a plan. Attack.
They hunt down the Flag Smashers and have a cool fight on top of these trucks, which reminds me a little bit of Indiana Jones, which I loved. Sam and Bucky have their asses handed to them by the Flag Smashers, which they now realize are super soldiers. Walker and Hoskins show up, and in the loosest definition of the term save, they save them. Walker also has a scene during the fight which reminds me of another Marvel scene. The duos go their separate ways, and Bucky decides to bring Sam to another super soldier he knows, Isaiah Bradley. Bucky and Bradley actually fought during the Korean War while Bucky was still the Winter Soldier. And because of Bucky's past as the Winter Soldier, Bradley refuses to help them outright. Bradley doesn't think that the presidential pardon is, I guess, a moral pardon for Bucky's past. And to that point, I understand why people would be upset with Bucky, but he was literally brainwashed and not in control of his actions. If you have venom towards what he did, save that venom for whatever's left of Hydra, which is, I guess, nothing. They leave and Sam is obviously upset. There was a black super soldier out there and no one knows who he was or what he did. Bucky says that Bradley had been through enough. And Bradley himself says that he had been in prison for decades by the government and had a bunch of tests run on him and stuff. While they're arguing, some cops show up and they are super aggressive towards Sam before realizing that he's the Falcon. Then they arrest Bucky for missing a therapy appointment, which is, I guess, apparently a thing. They go to jail and then Walker, I guess, bails them out. They don't have any money, but I don't know if it's a money situation as so much. They just needed someone from higher up to say you can let them go. As part of the conditions for the release, they'd go through this couples counseling thing with Bucky's therapist. It starts off kind of funny, but then it gets a little sad. It's obvious that Bucky is upset with Sam for rejecting the mantle of Captain America. But he explains that part of that disappointment is rooted in the fact that, Steve Rogers chose Sam to replace him. And if he was wrong about Sam, then he might be wrong about Bucky. Their counseling ends in a bad note and they decide, we're gonna do this one last mission and then be done with each other. And with all of their leads dried up again, they decide to go visit an old friend, one Helmut Zemo. In the meantime, the Flag Smashers and one Carly Morgenthau are on the run from the power broker. They narrowly escape some of his henchmen but lose one of their super soldiers in the process. And that's it for the episode, but now we can move into Easter eggs. If you look on the camera, you can see that Zemo is being held in cell 2187. If that number seems familiar, it's because it's the exact cell number that Princess Leia was held in on the Death Star in Star Wars: A New Hope.
Aren't you a little fat to be a stormtrooper?
Well, stay here and rot, you stuck-up bitch.
Fun fact, George Lucas has an affinity for these numbers because 2187 was the title of a Canadian short film that really inspired him. Now, Zemo was obviously the bad guy in Captain America: Civil War, but he was a little bit more grounded. And just based off the key art that we saw for this series, he's going to be Baron Zemo at some point. Speaking of bad guys, let's talk a little bit about the Power Broker. The power broker, in the comics anyway, is named Curtis Jackson. He's a career criminal that founds Power Brokers Inc. and along with Dr. Carl Malice makes superpowered humans to be wrestlers, I guess. And warning, I'm not a comic book reader, this is all based off of the Marvel Wiki. One of the people that the power broker gives superpowers to is Battlestar. In the comics, Battlestar had those powers and he was also trained in hand-to-hand combat by Taskmaster. He also carried around a triangular adamantium shield, which I do not think we'll be seeing in this series for a variety of reasons. Two of the other characters we were introduced to, Isaiah Bradley and Eli Bradley, also have big parts to play in the comics. Bradley was one of 300 test subjects for a super soldier serum and the only survivor. He was a hero that tried to take the mantle of Captain America and was imprisoned by the military as a result. Elijah is his grandson, who at one point got a blood transfusion from him and got his own superhuman abilities as a result. He later on became a founding member of the Young Avengers, and the Young Avengers are obviously part of the MCU's kind of plan moving forward. We also got our first FaceTime with Carly Morgenthau, who's a gender swap version of the comic book version, who is an anti-nationalist that fights a lot with Captain America. Okay, that's it for Easter eggs, but now I can get sort of into some predictions that at least I have. I get the feeling that John Walker is kind of going to go through a similar process that Steve Rogers did, as far as realizing what he should stand for versus what the government wants him to stand for. Also, the series is starting to weave an interesting web of clashes. We have Walker and Hoskins versus Sam and Bucky, Sam and Bucky versus the Flag Smashers, the Flag Smashers versus the Power Brokers, Zemo versus everybody, and more, which really, has me intrigued as to how they're going to wrap up all these lines in just 4 episodes. But overall, this episode was great, and I already cannot wait for next Friday. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. And make sure to like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. I'm Ken Jack. See you next time.